After what happened in 2019 with LSU, I started thinking about just how they've never made the playoffs before. They've never even come close. And they just came out of nowhere in college football that season, right? So last season, prior to the season with conference only and all that, I decided to make a video. First time playoff teams that could reach the playoffs and surprise some people in 2020. Well, here I am again, folks, and we're going to look at teams that could shock college football and be a first-time playoff team in 2021. Let's look at this list. Come on. Everybody, Christian Ballard here with Ballard Sports Media, coming at you with a video today looking at first-time playoff teams that could make it in 2021 to the college football playoff. Just a quick note. I'm not saying any of these teams are going to make it, but I do think these are teams we should keep an eye on throughout the offseason, potentially, obviously early on in the season. How do they get started? Who are they playing? Who are they competing with? And teams that I looked at last year and in years past that have been somewhat contenders, but just were not there. These are teams that have a lot of hype and potential going into this season. I have a list of 8 teams. I tried to come up with 10, but I couldn't. After you guys hear this list, though, let me know who you guys think could be a first-time playoff team that can either they sneak in as a 4 seed, and it's like this team got in for the first time, or maybe, are we going to see one of those LSU type of teams that we saw in 2019? Could we see a team like that out of nowhere this year? Just a reminder, just to go through a few teams that have made it. We know about Clemson and Bama. Georgia, of course, we know about 2nd and 26 that year that they made it. Oklahoma, we've seen make it year after year and can't win a playoff game. They might have a chance this year. We know what LSU did. A&M had a chance last year. They are on my list. They're the first team. And we'll go down the list real quick. If you remember back in 2015, Oklahoma made it. Of course, we're used to seeing them, but Michigan State made it in. The first year of the playoffs, we have Florida State in there. We had Oregon. We had Washington in 2016. I mean, we have seen some teams, you have your Ohio States, your Clemsons, and your Alabamas that are consistently making it in, right? Even if they miss a year, they're going to be back there within another year or so. Then you have those once-in-a-blue moon type of teams. Again, I mentioned Michigan State in 2015, or Washington the year after from the Pac-12, that haven't made it back since then, haven't really done much as a program since then. So let's go ahead and look at this list. I'm going to go ahead and start you guys off in the SEC. Texas A&M. And again, I'll say that this list is my own personal opinion. I want to hear from you guys in the comments who could be a surprise team, who could run the table this year, and maybe be a surprise playoff team in the Final Four. I'm going to start with A&M. They had a good run last year. They were 10-1. They only lost to Alabama big time. They beat a really good North Carolina team in the Orange Bowl. They have a lot of great recruits. I love Jimbo Fisher. I love what he's doing with the program. I think he's got to go in the right direction. Last year, they beat a good North Carolina team in the Capital One Orange Bowl. They have a 5-star quarterback in Haynes King. Jimbo is an offensive guru. He can use that to his advantage. They didn't lose too much. Again, I mentioned Haynes King. He's got a lot of talent. I feel like he's not getting enough credit. We need to look at him a little bit more. He was a 5-star hyped-up recruit a few years ago, and I don't know if it's the fact that he didn't go to a school like Bama or Georgia or whatever, one of the more Tier 1, Tier 2 type of teams, and instead he went to A&M. I don't know if that's the reason we're not talking much about him, but I feel like we need to, at least going into this year. I think A&M has a good chance to be not necessarily the SEC West front runner, obviously, because Alabama's going to be right there, at least to start out the season. But then you look at A&M, and I'll even throw in Ole Miss. We'll get to them later on. They are on this list. Jimbo Fisher called out Saban and said, we'll beat them when we see them, type of deal that he had a month ago. And, he does. You don't just say that with I mean, look, they have a shot. They have a chance. They really do. And even if they don't beat Bama, they can still run the table with a 1 loss. They could do what they did last year, have the 1 loss to Bama. They had a chance last year to back their way in. Notre Dame got the nod, though. So I think A&M first up on this list makes plenty of sense, at least to myself. But again, you guys let me know. Number 2 on this list, this is a favorite for the Big 12. I think we're going to have Oklahoma and then Iowa State in the Big 12 championship. A Heisman frontrunner, or not the Heisman frontrunner, but a key guy to keep your eye on, Brock Purdy. It's the Big 12. they made the title game last year. They return a lot of key starters. Defensively, I know it's not a defensive conference in the Big 12. There's really no defense. They still got some good players in there. Greg Ainsworth II uses the extra eligibility rule this year. He's returning for his 5th year. Brock Purdy's a good quarterback. He's got a strong arm. He's got great talent around him. Matt Campbell has a 35-28 record in 5 seasons. That's not too bad. I mean, I wouldn't take 28 losses, but I mean, you got almost 40 wins. And the losses that they've had have been against the better teams like, Oklahoma or whoever. It's not like they're losing to mediocre teams. Brock Purdy, strong arm. He's one of the top recruits, top quarterbacks in the draft class for 2022, alongside guys like Spencer Rattler, even go to North Carolina. We'll get to them in a second, and Sam Howell. Brock Purdy, with talent around him, and Matt Campbell running this offense, running this team, putting it together. They had a good run last year and a good case, not necessarily for the playoffs, but I mean, this is a team that, out of nowhere just ran the table a bit. And, I think they got a really good shot. We'll just have to wait and see. Number 3 on the list is North Carolina. They got to beat Miami to secure the division. Miami gets Alabama. We've been talking about it, blah, blah, blah. They got to beat Miami to secure the division. Mack Brown has been recruiting very well. Sam Howell, again, top quarterback, one of the top guys in next year's draft class. I think UNC, most likely, if not them, then Miami, but it's kind of a toss-up right now. Favorite for the Coastal. Javonte Williams went and got drafted. They had another running back. I'm trying to remember. I think they lost 2 running backs, but they returned some great starters on offense. They got a pretty solid O-line. They got some receivers. Like, Sam Howell has got it there. They got a pretty solid defense, returning some good players. When you look at Gavin Blackwell, Caffrey Brown, Emery Simmons. I mean, they got a few guys in there. They got a lot of young freshmen really on the defense. So the defense is questionable a little bit. But I mean, overall, they do have they have good players. Looking at their roster, everything here, Ty Chandler's a running back. He comes in actually from Tennessee. He transferred. I remember hearing his name when he was at Tennessee. He's not a bad player, I don't think. Obviously, guys, though, leaving Tennessee, you just don't know. But could he play a key role on the offense? Maybe. But again, for North Carolina, who's number 3 on this list, you got to beat Miami, secure the Coastal. And again, Mack Brown does recruit very well. It might not always be top 10, but somewhere in the top 15 or top 20. And it seems like it's just going in a good direction, obviously. You get past Miami, you run the table. I mean, I kind of see them going like 10-2, 11-1, somewhere in there. Overall, I think I actually had Miami beating North Carolina in my Miami preview video that I did, and I looked at that game. Just win the division. And even if you don't, let's say North Carolina's in a position, they run the table, they take a loss to Miami. Miami wins the division or whatever. Let's say they win the ACC. I'm just throwing out a scenario. And North Carolina's sitting there. We didn't win our division. We didn't make our conference championship, but we have a loss. We ran the table a bit. They could be in that 4th spot, conversation. It's amazing to see what Coach Mack Brown has done with the program in 2 seasons, 3 years, whatever. He was, he coached at Texas for 13 seasons, 15 seasons, 158-48 record. He's a very good winning coach. Took 6 years off. I don't know why he wasn't coaching for 6 years after he left in 2013, but he came back, and he's taken this North Carolina team almost all the way up to the top. They do have to win. This year has to be the year for North Carolina to win the division. They can do it, I think. And I think they can run the table with maybe 1 loss, or, I mean, they don't even get Clemson in the regular season. They have a good path to maybe even go 12-0. But we'll just have to wait and see. But North Carolina's number 3 on the list. Let's go back. Let's go into the Pac-12. Clay Helton is a great coach. 45-23. That's right. We're talking USC Trojans, right? A great mind for offense, great mind for football. They got a top quarterback in Kendon Slovis, a top guy in the 2022 draft class. He comes back to Southern Cal this year, a short 5-1 season. They averaged about 33 points a game last year. A lot of people are expecting the offense to be better. I know I am. I think they'll be the best team in the Pac-12. yes, Pac-12 might be a struggle this year in terms of they might be a bit down. Um, but I mean, look, I don't care who it is you have. If you have a clear path, oh, they didn't play anybody. The Pac-12 sucked this year. You're gonna put one loss or a undefeated Pac-12 champ and USC in there. If they run the table, do well enough, and win the Pac-12 with a loss or undefeated, they have a chance. You're a conference champion. That's the whole point. See, that's the thing with these expanded playoffs, too. It doesn't matter. Strength of schedule's not going to matter. If you win your conference and you're a Power 5 champion with a loss, or maybe even two loss. We've seen two loss champs. Oregon a couple years ago. It actually might have been last year, actually. But, I mean, look, that's the point. USC just has to win the Pac-12 undefeated or with a loss, regardless of strength of schedule. And they're in. I believe that. Because I think they're going to be good anyway. You know, they have the talent. They have the recruits. Clay Helton's a great coach. He could get it together. Kendon Slovis is going to carry this team on his back this year to a Pac-12 title. I'm calling that right now. So USC. So far, A&M, Iowa State, North Carolina, USC. Number 5 on the list, Miami. Hold on now. You got North Carolina, you got Miami. What about Clemson? We could see if it plays out right, you could see 2 ACC teams in there. It starts with Miami, though. You got to beat Alabama week 1. I think they're underrated. De'Aaron King is a great quarterback. He needs a lot more attention, I think. He's got a strong arm, great mobility, great game leader. You obviously, you know, a must-win game. Every game is a must-win game. I don't care who it is, right? It starts with Alabama week 1. I don't think they're going to win it. I think it'll be close. I think it'll be competitive, right? But, you know, you're talking about my Crimson Tide. But let's say you do win that. You go on, right? You just beat Alabama. Of course, the stakes are going to be high, and the ceiling is going to rise, and what you can do and what people expect and put on your back. Of course. You have 2 games that are tough. Outside, you have North Carolina and Alabama, right? You have to beat both of those teams. At the very least, one of them. Then you have to go, as a coastal team, to Charlotte to play Clemson. Most likely, 9 times out of 10, it's going to be Clemson. Right? Let's just go ahead and call it that they're playing Clemson in Charlotte, right? So you run the table, you go 12-0. You don't have Clemson on the schedule, but you got Alabama. Let's say you beat Alabama, you run the table. You get to Charlotte. You're undefeated 12-0, and you're playing Clemson. If it's a close game, you don't have to win your conference. You should, but you don't have to win your conference to get in. You got to have one loss. You got to have some quality wins, and you have to have a good path and something to show, right? Well, let's say Miami, you won the division, okay? Let's say one loss to Alabama, but it was close, right? I'm giving an example. Let's say they lose to Alabama, or no, I'll do you one better. They beat Bama, they run the table 12-0, but they lose to Clemson. Okay, won the Coastal, check. Make it to the ACC title, check. Okay, one loss to Clemson, wasn't too close, but neither was Notre Dame last year, and yet Notre Dame got in. Notre Dame lost to Clemson in a blowout. It was like 34-10, and they got in. You can't tell me. And think of all the other teams that could have qualified. Think of all the other teams. A&M was right there at the door. I'm never going to let that down. A&M had a chance. I still think they should have been the 4th team. I'm getting off track. Miami has it set up. They got the quarterback. They got talent. They've always had great pass rush and defense, right? They got to get past Bama. At the very least, have only one loss, whether it's to Bama, or maybe even if, like, they beat Bama and they lose to a team like North Carolina or whatever. But let's say if they run the table, if they only have one loss, or they run the table by some miracle, go undefeated, win the ACC, there's a couple possibilities that Miami can make it in. And I think it could be doable this year. I think they are one of the more underrated teams in the ACC, and just in college football in general. That being said, let's look at number 6 on the list, Michigan. Beat Ohio State. I think it is set up perfectly this year, right? I think they will have one of the better teams in the Big Ten this year, Michigan, right? I do think that. I'm not completely sold on them beating Ohio State or winning the division, but I think every other game, I mean, it sets up, they can run the table with it. They're going to be one of the better teams. I think they're going to be overlooked a bit. Ohio State's not going to be all that great. I'm not trusting CJ Stroud at quarterback. I'm not. I like Master Teague. He's a great running back. I think they bring Olave back. Like, they bring some key pieces back, but it starts with leadership, and Justin Fields is gone. I haven't seen anything this spring or anything that tells me CJ Stroud or whoever might be able to carry this team. I haven't seen much of it. I might be wrong. I might be overlooking this. But I agree with my uncle again a couple weeks ago, and I've been saying it often. Michigan is set up, right? This is probably the best year Michigan has to finally get it done, right? The Big Ten might not even be that good of a conference this year. I'm just going to say it like that. Outside of Michigan, and I have them at number 8. I got 8 teams on this list. The only other team that I could think of is Wisconsin. I'll get to them in a minute. Harbaugh can finally win the division, let alone probably beat Ohio State, and let alone win the conference, right? They could take a loss, win the conference, be a one-loss Big Ten champ. Or they could run the table and go all the way. Maybe the Big Ten's a little bit worse than we thought. Michigan's just game after game, takes it one game at a time. They run the table, and they go undefeated. If they win either undefeated or with a loss, I don't know why my phone falls like that. Anyway, if they could do it either with a loss and win the Big Ten, or you run the table undefeated, 12-0, win the Big Ten, 13-0, they're getting in. Big Ten, one-loss Big Ten champ is going to get in. Michigan could do it. I'm not saying that they will. I'm saying that they could. And if Harbaugh has any year to do it, it's probably this year. He is 49-22 in 6 seasons. That's not bad, right? And 22 losses in 6 seasons. Think about how many of those are to Ohio State. Outside of that, a bowl game here or there, right? It's not like he loses games he's supposed to. I mean, yeah, you're supposed to be beating your rival and should have figured it out by now, but it's not like they're, losing to teams like Akron or whatever. Anyway, 49-22 in 6 seasons. Jim Harbaugh at Michigan. As a coach, if you want to count overall, he is 107-49 in his career. If you include a 29-21 Stanford record from 2007 to 2010, and he was a head coach from 04 to 06 at San Diego College, where he ultimately in 3 years went 29-6. So Michigan has it set up, and they could do it this year. I think so. Moving on from Michigan, number 7, Chess Hall and I are high on this team, especially Chess Hall. Ole Miss. That offense is going to be explosive. It really is. Matt Corral. I don't think Alabama last year was a fluke. I mean, not Alabama the team, but that Ole Miss game, I don't think it was a fluke. I don't think Bama's defense was completely apt. I do think Ole Miss had one of the better offenses, not just in the SEC, but in football. It didn't pay off much for them. I mean, they made a bowl game against Indiana, but, outside of that, come on. Expect the same in year 2. Matt Corral comes back, running back Snoop Connor, just a lot of great guys on the offensive side of the ball. Forget names. They just have weapon after weapon at receiver. They're going to be a deep passing threat type of team. They're going to be good. They're going to be fast. They're just going to have great offense. And if it's true with what we've been seeing, that you need offense to win football games, Ole Miss is going to win some football games. I'm going to say that right then and there. I don't think the Bama game was a fluke. I do think Ole Miss, yes, you can sit there and say Bama did not have good defense in that game, and they sucked, and they should have lost. I agree. But Ole Miss still has great offense. And you'll see it this year. Finally, number 8 on the list. It's Ole Miss. Wisconsin. They almost made it in 2017, but Ohio State kept them out by winning the Big Ten. Which, by the way, thank you for that, Ohio State. That allowed Bama to get that 4th spot. 2nd and 26, rest is history, blah, blah, blah. Paul Chryst has a great record. 56-19. That's not bad. That's a good record at Wisconsin. They did win the West back-to-back seasons, 16-17. They have yet to get back to doing that. They might be the team to beat in 2021 as far as the Big Ten West goes. They get teams like Penn State at home to open the season. People are not expecting them to be as competitive as years past. And they really have a good setup just to run the table in the West. They don't have Ohio State on the schedule. They have Notre Dame on the road. The tougher games are at home for them. which actually I do apologize. I think they do have Ohio State on the schedule. I'm not really looking at it right now. But either way, the tougher games outside of a Notre Dame road trip, the tougher games are at home, which kind of puts them at an advantage for that. They have quarterback Graham Mertz coming back. He threw for 1,000+ yards, 61 completion percentage. But take into account they didn't really have much offseason in practice last year, right? Could you imagine stats like that for Wisconsin? And Graham Mertz I've heard quite a bit about. Could you imagine if he had more time to practice? Could you imagine more games? Could you imagine what we're going to have this season? You know, I'm hearing quite a few people high on Wisconsin. If they're going to get better, could you imagine the team that they'll field this year? More than 1,000 yards. A little bit higher than 61 completion percentage, right? If they had the offseason and everything, I believe that it could have been better. Just my opinion. The defense was great last year. You know, it was conference only last year. And yeah, against the better Big Ten teams like Michigan or Ohio State, it wasn't that great offensively. Defense was lights out. They're giving up maybe 10, 17 points in some games, 3 points, you know, whatever. I think they'll field a good defense this year too. They've always really had good pass rush and some key linebackers that they put in the NFL over the past few years. They've worked on that. But anyway, Wisconsin there at number 8. But that's going to do it. I got 8 teams. Again, let me know what you think. Do you agree with the list? Are there teams I'm missing out on? Who on this list do you agree with that could be a first-time playoff team this year? Not saying they will. But again, I kind of got this idea because, let's be honest, 2019 LSU came out of nowhere. So could someone have a Cinderella type of season like that? Cinderella season, you know, it's like a March Madness term. UCLA made the Final Four last year, right? I mean, Cinderella type team. Could it be USC, North Carolina, Iowa State, A&M, Miami, Michigan, Ole Miss? Teams I just mentioned. Who do you think it could be? Comment down below and let me know. I love you guys. Thanks so much for watching and tuning in today. Please like, comment, and subscribe right here to Ballard Sports Media for more sports content. And until next time, Ballard Sports Media, check it out. Love you guys. God bless. Roll Tide Roll. Jesus loves you.